call the member for Holt.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and welcome the contribution just made by the Chair of the Parliamentary Joint Intelligence and Security Committee, and also strongly support the private member's motion by the member for Bass, and would also pay tribute, as the Chair has done, to his service to the committee, but also to his service to his country in a previous life. And that does make the member for Bass, I think, quite qualified to speak about these particular issues because he's been at the coalface dealing with these issues. I'd agree with everyone that's made a contribution so far, Deputy Speaker, that there's no more important job that we can do as members of this Parliament than to keep our country safe. It's almost a sacred responsibility. All else flows from that. You can't have economic security without physical security. And so I support the government's endeavours thus far in making our country safer. And to demonstrate the nature of that bipartisan support, there have been, in my mind, 3.5 tranches, but almost 4 tranches of legislation that have been put through this Parliament to strengthen our security laws, to give the security agencies the powers that they need to continue to keep our country safe, and also and with appropriate safeguards. And I asked my very trustworthy staff member to check how many amendments we have made to the legislation that's been put forward. And our committee's in total, it's 109 amendments. And we've had 68 legislative changes as a consequence of the work of the committee. Why do I raise that, Deputy Speaker? I raise it because there's been a lot of loose talk by certain sections of the media about the need for these laws. And clearly these people don't get in a car and travel to where I live, because on the 23rd of September last year, terrorism visited our doorstep, my doorstep almost literally, when an assailant attempted to murder 2 policemen and would have, had he been successful in murdering those policemen, then attempted to attack and kill those in the police station. So when I read media commentary about whether or not these laws are needed and some scepticism about why these laws are needed, I can say to those people that are writing this that they clearly haven't been down to my electorate, and particularly with the associates of that assailant who was killed by our police officers, they are now before the courts again. And so I am fully seized by the government's desire to keep our country and community safe. It is bewildering to me why in the discourse about our security legislation that certain sections of the media commentariat do not understand why we need to be putting these laws through our Parliament. I've lived why we need to put these laws through the Parliament. We continue to live. And when I think the Prime Minister quite reasonably puts forward a proposition for further strengthening of the laws of our nation to keep our community safe, I think that he should be given the appropriate respect. There should be an appropriate discussion. And also these matters should be referred to our bipartisan committee. There is no benefit to our national security in these matters not being bipartisan. We must be in lockstep with our security agencies. If this power, for example, with respect to dual citizens, is something that our agencies require, then our Parliament must give it the most earnest consideration. It must come before our committee and we must have a serious, mature, reasoned debate, because we have to be the voice of reason, I think, Deputy Speaker, in these very challenging times. And we must understand what we're confronting. We are confronting a nation-state almost now, a caliphate, whose goal is to spread. It's a worldwide caliphate that has been declared in a particular region. So for people to say that this is not going to come and visit our shores, like it, ironically some people said to me last year, well, it has visited our shores. It's visited our shores on a number of occasions and is continuing to be so. I know for a fact that there are a very large number of individuals that are on our national security authorities' radar. But just to say, Deputy Speaker, the purpose of my contribution is to support the member for Bass's resolution and to reinforce why we need to continue to have a discussion maturely about the laws that our country needs to keep us safe, because, as I said, for me, there's no greater responsibility than I have to keep my country and my community safe.